What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video today. I'm going to be doing my official 2023 NASCAR Cup Series schedule predictions, as the schedule is expected to be released here in a couple of weeks. Let's go ahead and preview and predict the 2023 NASCAR schedule. Starting off on February 5th, and this one's already been confirmed, we'll be returning to the LA Coliseum for the Busch Light Clash. Now, last year when we thought about this event, a lot of people were really kind of nervous about the LA Coliseum hosting a NASCAR race. But the event this past year was really extraordinary. The Busch Light Clash basically got its identity back and its branding back and really set its own identity and brand back. This event was a major success for NASCAR as a whole. Probably the most watched Busch Clash we've seen in nearly 7 or 8 years, and a really big goal in the 18 to 49 demographic, which NASCAR is really trying to getting into that 18 to 49 demographic. It was a massive event. I'm not sure how attendance is going to be next year when we get this event going again, but I think it was a massive event. It'll be hosting the race on February 5th. Then there's going to be a 1 week bye week on February 12th. That's going to be where the Super Bowl is going to happen. And then the week after that, on February 19th, is once again going to be the Daytona 500. This has already been confirmed for around the President's Day weekend. Daytona 500, of course, always the first race of the NASCAR Cup Series season. It's been the first race, I think, since 1982 or 1983. So it used to be out on the West Coast in Riverside. Daytona 500, I expected once again be a massive event for NASCAR, like it always is. And as expected, once again, it'll be the opening race here in 2023. Right after Daytona 500 on February 26th, we will once again be in Auto Club Speedway. And once again, it's going to be on the 2-mile track. Now, eventually, it is going to end up being a short track. They're working on that project currently at the moment. There's been a lot of delays on that. There was talk that maybe in 2023 that we're going to have the short track idea come to fruition. And I think eventually we are going to have the short track idea come to fruition. But I do believe that at least for 2023 and maybe even 2024, we're still going to be on the 2-mile track. And we saw the best Auto Club race probably that has been ever put on at that track. So I think the fans really want to keep it, but eventually they are going to have to repave that track. And that's why they're planning to reconfigure it to a short track, which I'm for more short tracks. I know the car really hasn't done great on the short tracks this year, but I think they're going to improve it. And Auto Club will be the second race of the season. Right after Auto Club Speedway on March 5th, we'll be racing at Las Vegas Motor Speedway for the first of 2 times in the season. Las Vegas always puts on a really good show, has put on some really good racing over the last couple of years, and it does bring out a big crowd. In fact, we had a massive crowd for this past race at Las Vegas, one of the largest crowds we've seen in like 7-8 years at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. With capital city of entertainment, the track has put on, like I said, really good racing in shows, brings a lot of the people out there, a lot of celebrities out to the facility, and Las Vegas once again will be the 3rd race of the season and the 2nd race of the West Coast swing. Right after Las Vegas, on March 12th, there is going to be a change on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. Phoenix is going to lose a date as they are the season finale. And personally, I think the track that hosts season finale should only have 1 date. The last race of the 3 races in the West Coast swing is going to take place at Sonoma Raceway. I've been wanting Sonoma Raceway to be the final race of the West Coast swing for a very long time. And I personally think Sonoma should be part of the West Coast swing for multiple reasons. One, I think having a road course in the West Coast swing makes a lot of sense. Having different variety there makes a lot of sense as well. And having a road course early does make a lot of sense. Number 2, the weather in that time is much better than what you basically get in a later portion in June. So I also think that's another reason why they basically need to have it in an early portion. I've seen pictures how the track looks in March, and it looks great. Now, weather can definitely be a big factor for Sonoma, considering for California, it does rain a lot in that area. But you can have road course racing with rain. And I know attendance hasn't been great. I think if you have it earlier in the year, I think you're also going to help the attendance. And California is a big enough market where you can have Sonoma. And like I mentioned, Phoenix should not have 2 races if they're going to be the season finale going forward. Right after Sonoma, as we complete the West Coast swing, we'll be heading back out to the southeastern portion of the country. And on March 19th, we'll be racing at Atlanta Motor Speedway. But we're only going to be racing there 1 time this season, and I will explain why. I personally think a lot of tracks should only have 1 date, and I'm really skeptical that the second day coming up this year is going to have good attendance. Now, the spring race had absolutely incredible attendance, but I think a lot of people were really intrigued by what Atlanta Super Speedway technically was like, and I thought the race was pretty solid. Honestly, a lot of fans really enjoyed it, and they're planning to come back to the track. They did a lot of promotion, a lot of things this year that they haven't done in a very long time. And once again, Atlanta will have it on March 19th. I think it's around the same weekend they had it last year, so it does make a lot of sense why they're keeping Atlanta on the same weekend right there. It'll be on March 19th on my schedule. Right after Atlanta Motor Speedway on March 19th, then on March 26th, which is the next race after that, we're going to be once again going to Circuit of the Americas in late March right after Atlanta, which is basically around the same weekend that COTA was last year. COTA was just an electric event. And actually, there was a lot more to do this year than there was last year. The electricity around event. SMI did one thing that SMI has done really good is basically brought COTA to the schedule. And it's right now there's a lot of rumors and rumblings that it's going to be back in 2023. It never was officially confirmed by NASCAR, but there's a lot of rumblings that it's going to be back. It definitely deserves to be back on there. It's another road course. Test the driver's skill and sees what they can do. And it continues that kind of diversity as well on the schedule in the early portion of the season. COTA is a great facility. The racing was really great this year as well, and it will be kept on the schedule once again. Right after Circuit of the Americas, on April 2nd, we're going to be heading to Richmond Raceway. And this also is going to be only a one-time event. And one of the big reasons is that Richmond has been generally struggling for attendance. I saw the attendance this year on TV when I was at home, and it really was not that great of attendance. Now, some of you probably that were at the track probably thought the attendance was great, but I don't think Richmond deserves 2 dates. And generally, in my honest opinion, I don't think the racing has been really that fantastic over the last 2 years. So that's one of the big reasons why I personally believe that Richmond needs to lose one of their dates. And honestly, I wish it was a night race too, but they're going to keep it a day race. But at least it's earlier in the year, and you have it in much better conditions when it comes to the temperature. So Richmond is going to only have one date, and it will be the early spring date. Right after Richmond, we'll be on April 9th racing at Bristol Dirt for Easter weekend. It's already been confirmed at this point that the Bristol Dirt race is going to happen once again in 2023, and it will be happening on Easter weekend. So it's going to be a little bit earlier in the year. It's actually going to be 1 week earlier. One thing I'm a little concerned about with it is the weather. You have to be really, really concerned. And this is much more concerned because when it rains at the dirt tracks, it can get very, very muddy. We got very lucky this past year. There was a lot of rain in the forecast. Basically, we were able to get the whole race in and got that track dry. It really didn't get too muddy or too wet. It was basically sprinkling throughout the event and was able to put on an amazing show as well. That also really awesome Easter vigil that happened, which I think a lot of people got involved in that as well. It's here to stay for a long term, and you had a pretty solid crowd, not an amazing crowd, but a very solid crowd for the Bristol Spring Race. But in fact, I think they said the largest crowd for a spring race since I think 2015 or 2016. So that's why they're going to keep Bristol Dirt on the schedule. Right after Bristol Dirt on April 16th, we're going to be swapping the weekend where Martinsville was and Bristol Dirt was, and we'll be racing at Martinsville. And instead of it being a night race, I think it's going to be a day race. The reason, temperatures are going to be a lot better. This past year at Martinsville, it was very miserable. It was very, very cold. It was in the 30s and 40s degrees. And in fact, it was literally snowing at the track before the green flag dropped. They had to delay the start of the race because it was super, super cold. And it was really, really raining. And there was no rubber on the track. And it was just so miserable to watch that race at home. And the racing just wasn't that great. I think we're going toward more of a transition, getting away from Saturday night races because the race also got terrible ratings as well, which is another reason why this is going to become a day race. You can start the race in the day and end it at night, which I think that would be really cool if they did that more frequently. But I think Martinsville needs to be, once again, a day race for the spring, and it will be on April 16th. Right after Martinsville on April 16th, on April 23rd, we're going to be heading out to Talladega Super Speedway, which is going to be the same weekend it is this year. Talladega had their largest crowd they've had in 5 or 6 years. I think it's a track that definitely deserves to have 2 dates on the schedule. When you bring a large crowd out there, it makes sense. It made major party atmosphere. They also, for the pre-race show, brought the Home Depot setup out, which brought a lot more energy to the facility. And the racing itself was really, really awesome and really, really solid as well. So Talladega will keep their date on April 23rd in late April. It's also going to be around the time a lot of kids are kind of on spring break as well and getting close to summer, getting near the end of the school year. It makes a lot of sense. A lot of people getting drinking and partying in Talladega and doing some crazy things in the infield as well as that party atmosphere will be out there at Talladega. Right after Talladega Super Speedway on April 30th, we'll be racing at Dover for the only time in the season. Dover, there's been a lot of questions, and really it's been unknown if Dover was even going to come back. But really over the last few months, Dover has been talked about and is expected to come back to the schedule. So I've got Dover coming back to the schedule on April 30th. Dover had a really solid race this year as well, and like I mentioned, the crowd really came out. It was one of the largest crowds I've seen at Dover in nearly 10 years, and it seems like the track, when it comes to racing in person, seems to be a lot better than what you see on TV. But I thought the racing this year was really, really good, so the track absolutely deserves to be on the schedule going into 2023, and I think it will 1,000% keep its date heading into 2023. Right after Dover National Speedway on April 30th, on May 7th, we will once again have the Throwback Weekend on May 7th. Personally, for the Throwback race, which will also be the Mother's Day weekend as well, my personal opinion on this is I believe that the Throwback race should be the Southern 500 weekend, but I understand why it's not. But this is a track that has put on good racing. Now, I think the bingo will be really future after 2023 going to 2024. One thing to watch is attendance. I don't think the attendance is really, really that great for the spring race, and I think most tracks need to only have one date. But Darlington has put on such a good show over the years and had a really good field for the Throwback Weekend, which I think is why people still come out to that race. But I do think long term they're going to lose their spring date in the future. But I think at least for 2023 they're going to keep their 2 dates, and Darlington will continue to have their spring date. Right after Darlington, there's going to be a change on the schedule. And Gateway, which actually was after the Coca-Cola 600, is going to be moving all the way up to May 14th for Worldwide Technology Raceway. I'm going to tell you why this is going to happen. Gateway and the weather is a big, big reason. The weather on May 14th is a lot better than early June. It was not miserable at Gateway this past year. I will admit that. It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. It was in the mid-80s. I think if you have it in the middle of May, you probably could potentially still get warmer temperatures, but I also think it's going to be better for the fans as well. It's going to be in the mid-70s, and trust me, when it's warm in Gateway, it gets extremely warm. And also, a lot of kids are getting out of school as well, so you can get that party atmosphere out there as well. But this track definitely will be back on the schedule. It's been confirmed it's going to be back on the schedule for 2023. I believe it's got a 3-year deal. Just never was confirmed exactly where it's going to be this year, 2022. It was basically after the Coke 600. This year, it's going to change. It will be earlier in the season. Right after Gateway on May 21st, unfortunately, once again, the All-Star race is going to be back at Texas Motor Speedway. This is already confirmed. Not a fan of this, but unfortunately, we have to have it because of the contract obligations that Texas has. Trust me, I like to see Texas lose the All-Star race and go to somebody else. Unfortunately, though, because of the contract obligations they had. And I will say that people that said they were at the track actually really enjoyed it, which at least that people are happy they're enjoying something. But I absolutely hated the All-Star race. Do not get me wrong. And I think Texas should lose a date. And a track like Bowman Gray, or go back to Charlotte, or even go what Jarrett mentioned on the podcast earlier tonight, basically have it at freaking Soldier Field in the Chicago area. That's what needs to happen. I know a lot of people want that, but unfortunately for 2023, the All-Star race is going to be back. Right after Texas All-Star race on May 28th is going to be the Coca-Cola 600. After this past year's race, I'm really excited the Coke 600 will continue its tradition. Of course, a long-term tradition of having a 400-lap race, a 600-mile race. I know there's been a lot of questions about the length, basically shortening the lengths of these races with some of these, like Atlanta, which I think that'll be shortened. I think the Coke 600, though, keeps its length and tradition. You get the party atmosphere. You just get incredible facility as well. People absolutely enjoy the Coke 600, and it's going to continue being on May 28th. Right after the Coke 600 on June 4th, we're going to be having a new addition to the NASCAR Cup Series schedule for June 4th, and it's going to be taking place in the Midwest. And I know a lot of people have been wondering about the future of the Chicago Street Course. Well, on June 4th, the Chicago Street Course, I believe, is going to happen. NASCAR has been teasing here for the last 2 weeks that they're working on one massive big event, a new event, the new venue they're looking to go to. There's been a lot of rumblings and talks about Chicago Street Course coming on the schedule. I know there's been a lot of skepticism about it, but I think they're going to go to Chicago Street Course for multiple reasons. One, it's a new market. They really want to go there. Number two, you go bring to the city. I think a street course race needs to happen because it brings the racing product to the city and the fans. And fans can save money as well and watch. You guys probably have to have a ticket to watch the race unless you're on the balconies of the apartments in Chicago. Now, one thing I'm worried about is potential traffic concerns, which could be a major factor. But I do believe the Chicago Street Course is 1,000% going to happen on June the 4th. Right after Chicago Street Course on June 4th, the next week on June 11th, we're going to be going to another new facility that we've never been to for the Cup Series. We've already raced in the Truck Series, in the Xfinity Series. We're going to be going out to the West Coast and traveling out there, and we're going to be racing up in the West Coast and basically the Northwest in Portland. The Xfinity Series for the first time in 2022, race in Portland, and one thing we're probably going to be seeing is rain in this race. But NASCAR has been saying for a long time that they want to get up to that Northwest region. And look, I know a lot of people are not big fans of rain racing, but more than likely for the Cup Series, when this happens, you're probably going to get a rain race. But I think all three series should be up there in the Portland area. I think the event cannot survive by itself as an Xfinity Series race or a Truck Series. It can't survive like that anymore. So if they're going to want to race in Portland going forward, they're going to have to bring the Cup Series up there, and I think they are going to do that in 2023. Right after the Portland weekend, we're going to have a 1-week break in June 18th. And then on June 25th, once again, we'll be racing at Nashville, and this will kick off the NBC portion of the season as well. Nashville, of course, will be on the third year of their plan. They are expected to be on the schedule at least through the 2024 season, so we know that's confirmed for a long time. NASCAR has really been admiring Nashville and wants to stay in the Nashville area for many, many years. So it is not a big surprise they want to continue being in the Nashville area, and I, again, expect that they are going to be in Nashville through 2024. I think they want to have the fairgrounds, and they want to have the other track on the schedule as well. So I do personally believe that Nashville is going to be on June 25th. I think the racing itself will probably be really good once again as well, especially with that resin compound, and it's going to remain on the schedule on June 25th. Right after that, after Nashville, on July the 2nd, we'll be once again racing at Road America. Now, there has been a lot of future questions about the future of Road America because NASCAR's contract with Road America only goes through this year. And they've said they've had small talks with Road America's had small talks with NASCAR about their contract, but they really haven't gone in depth. But I think these talks are going to get sped up in the near future, and I think they're going to return to Road America. And it's on the 4th of July weekend, and the racing itself, I think, has been really, really great. It would be a shame if we lost Road America, but I don't think that's going to happen this time around. I think they're going to get the contract sorted out, and I think they'll once again return to Road America. It has a great crowd. Why would they get rid of it? It would make no sense, and I think Road America will be once again on July the 2nd. Right after Road America on July the 9th, there's going to be another change on the schedule. Atlanta Motor Speedway is no longer going to have that second date. And I know we've already got a Chicago-based race that's on the schedule already. Well, there is going to be another Chicago track that hasn't hosted a race in the last couple of years. I think the NASCAR Cup Series on July the 9th, for the first time since 2019, I believe Chicago Speedway is actually going to host a NASCAR Cup Series race. I think there's a big reason for this. Number one, there's been a lot of rumblings around Chicago. There have been a lot of talks that Chicago was going to be gone. But over the last few months, we've been hearing some rumblings that Chicago and NASCAR have apparently been in talks and negotiations about hosting a Cup Series race. And look, the weather is not really that great for the time of the race, but I think Chicagoland is going to be back on the middle of July once again. I think it's going to happen on July 9th, and I think NASCAR is going to go there. I think it really makes a lot of sense to bring it back. Track produce great racing with the Gen 6 car, which is one of the few tracks with the intermediate package that really produce good racing. We know the next gen car probably could produce some amazing racing, and it could be one of the top-tier races. I think Chicago gets back on the schedule on July the 9th. Right after Chicago on July 9th, on July 16th, we're going to be heading to New Hampshire Motor Speedway once again. Now, New Hampshire is going to basically be on the same weekend. Once again, it's been for the last couple of years in the middle of July as we get closer to the playoffs. New Hampshire's been a track that's produced some decent racing. They've been putting some resin compound down, which I think has really generally helped the racing at New Hampshire over the last couple of years. I think it's going to continue really host racing for a long time. I know a lot of people basically want a night race happening in New Hampshire, but it's not very possible. So I think New Hampshire won't have the rain problems that they had, and I think it will continue to host racing here in 2023. Right after New Hampshire on July 16th, on July 23rd, we'll once again be heading to Pocono, but only for one time once again. I know a lot of people want that Pocono doubleheader to come back. It was a massive event for Pocono. But Pocono itself as a track, it really, I think, makes a lot of sense for it to only have one date on the schedule. The track itself has not produced the greatest racing in the world. I think we did have some good races this year in 2021, but also has some not so good races. But I think it makes a ton of sense to keep Pocono on the schedule long term. Pocono overall is a very, very great facility. It does what it best it can, and I think attendance will be great, but it will only host one race in the 2023 season. Right after Pocono on July 30th, we're going to be racing in Indianapolis. But instead of racing on the Indianapolis road course, I predicted the Brickyard 400 is actually going to return in 2023. We have heard some rumblings and rumors over the last year or so that Roger Penske, I believe, really wants the Brickyard 400 to return. I know the racing itself has not been the greatest. I really would rather just have the road course be the facility. But I think with some of the new road courses that are generally coming on the schedule, that are on the schedule on this list, I really believe that they're going to bring the Brickyard 400 back. It brought a lot more fans in. I think more fans will actually show up if the Brickyard does come back. I know some fans have been clamoring for the next-gen car to be tested at the Brickyard track. I don't think the racing would be absolutely amazing, but I think that they really want it back, and I think that they are going to bring it back in 2023. Right after Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Brickyard 400, on August 6th, we're going to be racing at Michigan for the only time in the season. Michigan is a track that I'm really intrigued to see how the next-gen car is going to race, because we saw how Auto Club was, and I know that they basically haven't repaved the track in many years, but I think the racing actually is going to be really intriguing to watch. And the attendance was actually really solid as well, so it's not a massive surprise that they're looking to bring it back long-term. I know there have been some questions long-term about the future of Michigan over the years, again, because the attendance has not at some points been great, but it also has been great at points as well. Michigan's a track I'm very intrigued to see, and it will be back on August 6th once again in 2023. Right after Michigan on August the 13th, we're going to have another change. As we already talked about, I believe Richmond is going to lose their second date. So who is going to get the date? Well, NASCAR has been talking about going international, and I think that they're going to be starting in Canada and Mexico as an international date. But there's one track that I believe is going to get a date. It's not Canadian Tire. I think a track that used to host NASCAR Xfinity Series races, that being Montreal or Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, if you like to call it, I think that track is going to host NASCAR Cup Series racing for the first time. Every single race at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in the NASCAR Xfinity Series produced spectacular racing. There's not been one bad race that I've ever watched at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Whatever series has been there, it's produced amazing racing. And it's got a great energy around the track as well. I know many fans want this track to come back. So I think Circuit Gilles Villeneuve is going to make its return to the NASCAR Cup Series, will make its official debut to the Cup Series schedule, and make its return to NASCAR in 2023. I would not be surprised there are already communications to return, and I think this track will be hosting races in 2023. Right after Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, on August 20th, we're going to be heading to another road course and once again racing at Watkins Glen. This will be the second to last race before the playoffs happen. This track has been a track that is one of my favorite tracks we've had every single year. The race this year in 2020, last year, was short, but in fact, I think it was the fastest Cup race that's had happened in many years. It was like 2 hours and 10 minutes. It was a really fast-paced race. Cautions didn't really take too long, and that's because they had the IndyCar race also in Nashville as well that weekend. I think Watkins will produce a really solid race as well. Now, also, that's going to be during around the time the Gateway Weekend probably will happen as well for IndyCar. But I think it's a great track, great facility, and always gets amazing attendance as well. And the final track of the regular season on August 26th, once again, will be Daytona. The race has been very successful the 2 years we've had it so far, and I think it will continue to be one of the most successful events. As a cutoff race, it's always very intriguing because you never know who's going to win, and you can get a surprise winner that makes their way into the playoffs. Now, I'm personally not a big fan of the win in your in system, but I think if you're going to have the win in your in system going forward long term, I think Daytona hosting the regular season finale makes a lot of sense. I don't want to ever host in the season finale, but I think it being the regular season finale makes a ton of sense, and it brings a lot of people in as well. So it will probably once again be the regular season finale in 2023. So now let's jump into the playoffs and let's talk about it. So what is my playoffs? Well, the round of 16 is going to be very similar to the round of this year. So the playoffs are going to kick off on September 3rd, and it will be the Southern 500 once again. Now, I personally think the Southern 500 should be the throwback weekend, but I understand why it's not. This is a test of man versus machine, and a race that always produces amazing racing as well. Last year's Southern 500 produced an incredible finish between Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson, and I think it will only produce more amazing finishes over the years. And I think attendance will also be really great as well for this event. So the Southern 500 is going to host the first race of the round of 16 in the playoffs. Right after Southern 500 on September 3rd, on September 10th, we'll be racing at Kansas for the only time in the season. The reason that Kansas is losing one of their dates is because the attendance for the spring race has not been fantastic over the last couple of years. So I think SMI is going to play it safe, and they're going to go out and give Kansas their only date in the fall like it used to be before 2011. But I think the track will produce some really, really great racing as a whole in this event, and I think it will continue to be a great facility and a great track as well. So Kansas will be the second race in the round of 16. And the final race of the first round is going to take place at Bristol for the cutoff race, as it's always been for the last few years. It being a cutoff race in the playoffs makes a ton of sense. The racing's always been amazing at Bristol every single year we've been there, whether it's a Bristol dirt or the regular Bristol track. For every series, it doesn't matter. It always produces amazing and spectacular racing. So it is going to continue being the cutoff race for the round of 16 in the Cup Series playoffs. Now we're getting into the round of 12, and the round of 12 is also very, very similar. In fact, it's actually the same as the round of 16 as well, and the same as the playoffs. So September 24th, going to take place at Texas Motor Speedway. God, I wish I was not saying it was a 500-mile race, but I think this race will be dropped to a 400-mile race, which I'll be much more happier to watch a 400-mile race in Texas than a 500-mile race. But honestly, I just wish we were not going to Texas. But again, they have those big contract obligations with Texas Motor Speedway. NASCAR does, so they have to continue racing there. So it makes a ton of sense why it will host the first race of the round of 12. Makes a lot of sense, and it will continue hosting that. After that, on October 1st, we'll be racing at Talladega for the halfway point of the playoffs. Talladega, awesome race, puts on amazing racing overall, and I think we'll see a great attendance for that as well. Will we see rain this time around in 2023? Who really knows at this point, but Talladega once again hosting the race in October. Always in the playoffs. I'm glad it's not a cutoff race anymore. I know a lot of people want it to be a cutoff race, at least for the Cup Series side of things, but I think being in the middle of the playoffs makes a ton of sense. And then the final race of the round of 12 on October 8th is once again going to be at the Charlotte Roval. Now, I know some people are questioning how long they're going to keep the Charlotte Roval on the schedule, but I personally believe that the Charlotte Roval long-term needs to continue being on the schedule for at least the next 5 to 10 years. I know that's a really long-term stretch, but because I think a lot of people also saw how good the Coke 600 was this year, and I think people need to realize that the Charlotte Roval has produced great racing every single year and there's never been a dud of a race. So I think they're going to keep it on the schedule in 2023, and we'll keep it as a great facility. And now let's jump into the round of 8 and the 3 races, which, once again, no surprise, are the same. October 15th, the first race of the round of 8 is going to once again take place at Las Vegas. Las Vegas has a contract, I believe, right now through 2029, where they have to host 2 races every single year. Las Vegas, like I've already mentioned, great party atmosphere, and always brings a lot of energy to the facility as well. And like I mentioned here, it will once again be the first race of the round of 8. For the first time, they'll be hosting the round of 8. But this year, they're moving it's a little bit ick, and also will be a day race as well once again. Then the next weekend on October 22nd, we'll be back at Homestead Miami Speedway. I know a lot of people want Homestead to be the season finale, and trust me, I think it should be the season finale. But I think Homestead Miami Speedway once again on October 22nd. It's already confirmed. The last track has already been confirmed for that. Homestead, awesome track, produces amazing racing. I'm excited to see how the next one is going to race at Homestead later this season in 2022. We're not in 2022. We're talking about 2023. So Homestead is going to continue hosting the second race of the round of 8, and this will be a great race once again. And then the final race of the round of 8 is going to take place on October 29th in Martinsville. Now, I'm not sure how the weather is going to be. It's going to be a day race once again and going to transition into night. I think its start time has moved up a little bit earlier in the day. I think around 1 p.m. Eastern, actually like 12 p.m., 1 p.m. Eastern is when the race should generally start. Martinsville should be hosting the last race at around 8, though. It's a great race and get a lot of tempers flaring going into the final race of the season. We'll probably see a lot of tempers flaring in that race in 2023. And then finally, the final race of the year will take place on November 5th on Phoenix. This one has already been confirmed that it will once again be hosting the season finale at Phoenix in 2023. It makes a lot of sense, and it already was sold out for this year as well. The event for this year was already sold out, so they're going to keep it as season finale. And I really predict, and I think Dustin Long would agree with me on this, I believe they're going to be keeping it as season finale through, I think, the 2024 season. And I think they're going to wait for the contract to go through before they go ahead and end it. So the final race of the season will take place, in my opinion, on November 5th, and it's already been confirmed at Phoenix. So that is my 2023 NASCAR schedule predictions. Some radical things. And one thing you probably noticed if you've gone through the whole video, A lot of tracks only have one date. Atlanta lost one of their dates. Kansas lost one of their dates. So you're going to have less tracks with multiple different races, but I think it's going to create some more variety. And also Richmond lost one of their dates as well. So it's going to create a lot more variety for tracks to basically be a little more interested to see some new facilities come in as well. So that is the 2023 NASCAR schedule predictions. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notification on to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on page as well. Let's get you over that and comment your thoughts on today's video. What are your 2023 NASCAR schedule predictions as we get closer to the schedule being released? Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel will either be a NASCAR news video or we may have another predictions video for 2023 in some sort of way with the NASCAR silly season. It'll be one of those videos. Keep your eyes on that because it might be coming out as well. And also, of course, we got the SRX race happening this weekend and the truck race in Knoxville and the Canadian Grand Prix as well. That is all going to happen this weekend. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.